Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem video. This is a postmortem of my Blitz chess game number 116, where my opponent played f4, the bird opening, and I responded with e5, the from gambit. Now you see here e5 is not the best move necessarily, but it leads to some interesting chess. You can play with d5 and or knight f6 and get a good game. And basically, black equalizes immediately because f4 is just not a good opening move. But e5 gives both sides some chances, so and it leads to some interesting chess, as I was saying. So let me show you the main trick with the from gambit is if white takes, which is I think the normal response. You play d6, and then when he takes on d6, you take with the bishop, and then he needs to play knight f3. If he plays some other move, like here, for example, this leads to mate. So it's, let's see, what's the best way to do it? Check here with the queen. The king has no moves. And pawn here, queen takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, and that check cannot be defended, so that's checkmate and game over. So that's the main idea. So, of course, people who play the bird opening know about the from gambit. They know about that checkmate trap, and they will play the move knight to f3, and then the game goes on from here. The funny main line play continues with the g5, just trying to chase that knight away. But there's other ways to play. You can play knight f6, with basically an equal position. So anyway, that's a little bit about the from gambit. Now let's go back to the game. He played this weird move d4, and I don't think that's in the opening book at all. Yeah, d4 is just not in the opening book. So let's go back. So we're out of the book at this point, and it's just a question of which pawn I should take here, and I decided it's better to take the center pawn than the wing pawn, and Chess Engine agrees, so it's probably the right choice I took. Takes back with the queen, and then I played knight f6. I could have played knight c6 to gain a tempo on the queen right away. And afterwards, I was wondering if this was a little bit of an inaccuracy. For example, he could have played e4 here, and but the engine still gives white a good game. Knight c6 hitting the queen, queen moves, and then bishop e7. And you see, well, white got a couple of pawns in the center, which may have some advantage, but black has a tremendous lead in development. So the computer rates this as strongly in black's favor. Anyway, I took the pawn. He took back with the queen. I played knight f6, and he played knight f3. Didn't play that move e4. It was just something I was thinking about. And the game continued. So I go d5. Now I'm clamping down on this e4 move. So he goes e3. Bishop d6, just trying to develop my pieces. Black has played, white has played an unusual opening, does not have a great position, but it's not like he's losing or anything. You just have to keep on developing and look for your chances. But your main advantage in a situation like this is you have easier development, and he has some long-term weaknesses here in this backwards pawn. So bishop d3 he played, logical developing move and covering up some of these holes. I go for c5, kicking the queen. And now this is another interesting point. I assumed he had to move the queen. I was calculating he could either move the queen to this square or this square. But the chess engine points out very astutely that he has an intermediate move, bishop b5 check. And after I interpose the knight, then he can move the queen to d2, which is a much better square for the queen. What happens in the game is the queen gets trapped, but so this is a neat way to escape that. And of course, black still has an advantage because of better development, and he's got some more center control and fewer pawn weaknesses. So, but white is still in the game. It's not like he needs to give up at this point. So that was an interesting little intermezzo. So after c5, you always look at those checks because you can throw them in at any time, even if your queen is under attack. As long as you have to, of course, see through it all the way and make sure there's a way to unwind safely. But in this case, it was possible. So he played queen c3, and I went knight c6. And here I started noticing that the king and the queen were lined up on this diagonal, and the knight is defending this square here. So if I put a bishop there, it would skewer the king and the queen. So I was already thinking about pushing the move c5, which is a double attack of sorts. It directly attacks the bishop, and it threatens bishop to b4 with the skewer winning the queen. So he castled and avoided that threat. But as I looked at it, I was still thinking about this move c4. It was still in my head from the previous thought. So the skewer no longer works. But as I was looking at the position, I realized, well, with the bishop on b4, the queen has very few moves. And then I started calculating exactly after c4. The bishop has only one move if he wants to save the bishop. And after that, when I play bishop b4, it traps the queen. The queen has no moves on this diagonal because of my bishop, no move on this diagonal because of my knight, no moves right or left because of the combination of the pawn and the bishop, and no moves up and down because of his own piece and my protected pawn here. So the best move here is to take the pawn on c4, just give up the bishop. And that would leave white a piece down. But I guess he either didn't notice that or hoped I didn't notice the queen trap. And at this point, he had to stop and think. But there's really no way out. Chess Engine recommends b3 and letting the bishop take the queen. But he played queen takes f6. And anyway, the game is pretty much over at this point. But I'll go ahead and play through the remaining moves. Mainly, you just have to worry about not giving up your advantage. Not letting yourself get mated or losing major amounts of material. So you don't have to play any tricky moves. You can play simple developing moves. And I won the exchange there, and in a couple moves later he actually gets the exchange back. With this astute move, he trades rooks, and then he's got the knight fork between the queen and the rook. But this is all too little too late. And I just, at the end here, I traded off all the pieces, which is what you want to do in many cases when you have a large advantage in pieces. You want to keep the pawns on the board because the pawns are what you're going to win with. But you want to trade off the pieces. Your advantage becomes more and more pronounced the fewer pieces there are. So now it's just my light squared bishop against his light squared bishop, and my queen against his dark squared bishop. And the queen, being a much more powerful piece, can just make many more threats. It can move on the diagonal and then threaten horizontally or vertically. So it's just using the extra power of the queen. So he gets in a few checks. And I do want to make sure I don't get trapped again. You do have to play cautiously even when you have the advantage, because you don't want to fall into a mate in two or something like that. But once I block all the checks, then I can start scooping up pawns. And at this point, he resigned because the writing was on the wall. I was going to... he can defend this pawn, but I'm just bring my queen over here and push my b pawn through, and one of these pawns will go through, either the b pawn or the c pawn. So anyway, that's how the game went, and just something to keep in mind. That's one of Dan Heisman's recommendations. Is he has a video called "When You're Ahead, It's a Whole Different Game," and it's about if you're ahead in material, particularly if you're ahead of piece or you have better pieces. You want to trade off the pieces but not the pawns, and increase your advantage that way. So this was a good example of that. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed it, and leave any comments you have in the section below, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.